Okay, so this is reading 823 for you, ML, and you asked me some specific questions, and in my email I've said to you I'm not sure whether I'll be able to answer that specific question, but I can already see an awful lot of stuff coming through here. I'll focus primarily here for you, but I just want to talk about this stuff here to give it a bit of context for you. This is a you or Idaho, and this themes the whole of your reading for you. It's very interesting because you is very much about you. The yew tree is very much about changes, but it's about changes that come from within. So it's about decisions that you make. It's about approaches to life that you have, and that kind of themes everything for you for the next 3 to 6 months. Quite often readings are about 12 months in advance. Yours is not. They're clearly saying to me 6 months at this point, so, and I'll talk about that a bit more when we get there. These staves here are the ones for the past. Gorse or on kind of themes your last 3 to 6 months or so. I'm going to stretch it out just a little bit to a year, and Gorse is very much about just living each day as it comes, because there are difficulties attached with planning for the long term, and for you of course that's been very much the case. Very difficult to plan financially when you're getting assaulted, for the want of a better phrase, by legal issues. We have under here Alder or Fian, and over the top we have Muin or Vine. Now Alder is very much about seeking advice. For you particularly, of course, that's legal advice, but it's also financial advice, it's relationship advice, it's emotional support. So for you it's been very important that you have a broad range of ethical support options available to you. But interestingly enough, you know that already, and I can see that because Muin or Vine sits over the top. Muin or Vine is about reaping what you sow. It's about harvesting what comes your way. And for you it's about ethics, it's about doing the right thing, it's not about greed, and I can see that. This stave that sits in the middle of your reading, I think I've done a couple of readings or a reading or so before for you, and if this came up before you will know that it's not my favourite stave. Blackthorn or strafe is very much about sadness. Now this is sitting in the centre of your reading, of your spread, and so this Ogham is talking about what's happening in your life right now, and this is isolation from family, this is being cut off, this is feeling alone, this is feeling assaulted. That's a really good word for you, and whilst that's not in the physical sense, that's in the emotional sense. You know, there's the cracking apart of the family as a result of what's happening, and it's very, very sad, and your partner is frustrated, and anger, I can see the frustration and the anger coming through, but there's also that undercurrent of real sadness. Yeah, quite darkness. Let's spend a little bit more time though here, because this is really where we want to be. I'm really pleased to see this here. This is coal or hazel, and this themes the next few months for you. This is wisdom, and I'm really pleased to see that there. That's about rational thought. But it's not just about intellectual thought. It's not just about intelligence. That's not what coal is really about. Coal is about working from a place of inherent wisdom. So what do I mean by that? From what I understand from the email that you've given to me, your partner is very much what she really wants to do is to do what her father wanted her to do. It's not about the money. It's not about profiteering. It's about being ethical. It's about doing things that make her feel she can sleep at night, that both of you as a couple can then look back once this episode is finished and say, we did the right thing. We know we did the right thing. That's what this is about. So Hazel is very much about following what your heart and soul tell you to do, and knowing that it is appropriate. I'm just going to talk about each of these quickly, and then I'll kind of put it all together for you. This one that's sitting on the top is Lewis or Rowan, and interestingly, and it's on the top, this is very much about self-protection. And when I talk about self-protection, it's dependent upon the circumstances. So for you, this is very much about making sure that you have appropriate legal counsel. Clearly, and I'm trying to be tactful with this, but the words dirty come to mind. I'm being told dirty tactics. So for you, it's very important that you do two things. First of all, that you work according to your ethics and continue to work according to your ethics, so that even if the proverbial hits the fan, you still know that you as a couple, legally and morally and ethically, did exactly the right thing. That is paramount. Secondly, it is really, really important that you ensure that your legal counsel does that, but that they also work to the absolute maximum of their legal capacity. Lewis or Rowan is very much about making sure that you protect yourself, in this instance legally, but it's also about making sure that you protect yourself emotionally. Particularly for your partner, because your partner is a little bit of meat in the sandwich here, and whilst you are incredibly supportive of her, she kind of feels fractured from who she thought were supposed to be supportive family members. So she's feeling very alone, she's feeling incredibly vulnerable, and assault is a really good word. Assault, emotional, legal assault, and so she will need an awful lot of your support through the next 6 months, but you will also need emotional support, and your relationship will need emotional support. So there's three entities there. There's yourself, there's your partner, and there's your relationship as well. I really encourage you to think about Lewis or Rowan here, and think about all of the ways that you can support yourself legally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, in terms of looking after your health, both of you as well. The one that's sitting underneath that is Huath or Hawthorn, and goodness me, Hawthorn is about obstacles. Thankfully, Lewis is over the top of that, so we can see some positive outcomes here in terms of legal issues for you. Huath, I kind of liken it to a pain in the neck. So let me give you that as an analogy. So let's say your goal is here, and for you, I think that the goal in terms of the legal issue that you face is not that you get lots of money and that you get necessarily the outcome that you want, but that you get the outcome that your father wanted, and that is ethically and morally appropriate. So that's your goal, okay? And you are here. And sitting in the middle of that, in between those two, is a damn great hawthorn tree, or Huath. And Huath, if you think about a hawthorn tree, it's full of thorns, and if you try to walk through that, you're going to get ripped to shreds. You're going to be bloodied up and scratched, okay? So getting to your goal, going directly to your goal, is not always going to work. But what Hawthorn clearly shows us is that if you go around, you can still reach your goal. All right, so you go around. So what does that mean? What that means is that you need to be really, really resourceful. You need to be really, really clever. You need to think outside the box, and you need to know that when plan A doesn't work, plan B or plan C will. Okay, so in other words, Hawthorne says you will get an appropriate outcome, but it may not be as a result of your first approach to it. And I'll pick up again on that in a moment. And then sitting down here at the bottom is ash or newen, and that's also about changes as well, but it's about changes that are imposed on you by other people. So what do I have here? When I put all this together, I actually see that you do get what it is that you want, but there's a compromise as a result of that. There's a cost associated with that in terms of compromise. And that may well be that the control of the will is transferred, not necessarily from your partner, but from the co-executor to another, shall we say, more ethically balanced person or organisation. I do see a positive outcome for you, and I do see the positive outcome occurring within the next 6 months or so, in terms of your partner being able to on-sell the land and so on. However, you need to think about alternative ways that you can approach the situation. So the pair of you as a couple, you and your partner as a couple, need to sit down with the lawyer and write down all of the different ways that you could approach this. And then you need to work out what are those ways that you can approach this that you are legally, but more to the point, ethically comfortable with doing. Because there are other things that you could do that don't necessarily meet with your ethical boundaries. You could be equally as attacking as the other side, but your partner's ethics and your ethics kind of hold you back from that, and that's admirable. But it may be that you might need to compromise on those ethics just a little bit in order to reach the outcome that your partner's father would have wanted or would have been prepared to compromise on. Okay, so what am I saying there? What I'm trying to say there, not very well it would seem on reflection myself, is that the legal outcome will not be exactly what your partner wants, and it won't be exactly what your father would have wanted. But the outcome will be slightly compromised in a way that your partner's father would have said, oh, yeah, okay, all right, I see where you're headed with that. Yeah, that's okay. So a bit of a compromise, okay. But that compromise will come about as a result of you thinking about how to approach the situation from a couple of different viewpoints. And that may be stretching your ethical limits just a little bit, okay? Not to the point where you completely undermine all of your own moral boundaries, but where you need to just see things from a bigger viewpoint, okay? Now, I also wanted to talk to you about your Druid Animal Oracle card that came up, which is Frog. I'm really pleased to see Frog here, actually, because Frog or Loscan is a really beautiful creature that is kind of like the boundary between water and earth, and he absolutely signifies that balance that you have to make between emotion and necessity. So on the one hand, when we were talking here, we were talking about compromise. Frog is a little bit about that, but insofar as, you know, if you think about your emotions and your ethics here, but you think about the practicality of the situation here, you're very, very strong on ethics and morals and doing things the right way. and minimising harm as much as possible. But the practical issue is that the legal system doesn't always give a shit about how you feel emotionally, you know, so you're kind of balancing those two things. And Frog is all about that. So water and earth, he comes from water, he goes to earth, and water is very much about emotionality, it's about ethics, it's about morals, it's about doing the right thing. And earth is very much about home, it's about land, it's very, very much about land, but it's also about stability, so it's that kind of balance between all of that. So Frog is a fantastic, I guess, totem animal for you to think about and have as your mascot, for the want of a better phrase, over the next few months. He's also about healing, he's about self-healing, and he's about protecting as well. Remember we talked about protecting. He's very much about supporting the relationship that you have with your partner and caring for that through this process as well. And he's also about results. Now, if you think about Frog, when he spawns, he has millions of babies. You know, I'm speaking metaphorically. He has lots and lots and lots of babies. And so the outcome here, and many of which will not survive, of course, but this is about outcomes. This is about positive outcomes, but it's about compromising on those positive outcomes. It's about finding the compromise that you feel comfortable with. So I'm hoping that this reading will go some way just to giving you a little bit of comfort, knowing that the outcome to this legal battle, yes, it will scar the family, and yes, it will fracture the family and continue to do so for some time. And it is really important that your partner gets emotional support through that fracturing and ongoing fracturing process, but that the legal outcome will be something that you can live with, but that you will need to compromise on.